No, you.
Okay.
You're the designated person.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. What's your name?
Victor.
Huh?
Victor.
Where are you from?
Originally Colombia,
Colombia. ¿De qué ciudad?
Bogota.
Ah, la capital.
We met before briefly, and you named my son a year ago.
So, here we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari Jashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Anachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So, Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and purports by Srila Prabhupada. Today is 7th canto, chapter 1, text 7. So, we'll chant it. Saptam Rajas Tamaiti Prakitir Atmano Prakitir Natmano Guna Nate Shang Yuga Padrajan Rasa Ulasa Evava. Very interesting. Satang Rajastamayiti Prakitir Natmano Gunaha Nate Shang Yuga Padrajan Rasa Ulasa Evava. So, we'll talk about this and you can chant it. First, I'll read Prabhupada's translation. My dear King Parikshit, which is Rajan. Rajan is the vocative addressing the king, O king. The material qualities, Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna, all belong to the material world and do not even touch the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These three gunas cannot act by increasing or decreasing simultaneously. It's an interesting statement. So we're going to use a non-cliche, unpack that. So, Prabhupada's purport. Hare Krishna, come in. The original position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of equality. There's no question of his being influenced by Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, or Tamo Guna, for these material qualities cannot touch the Supreme Lord. The Lord is therefore called the Supreme, Ishvara. Ishvara Parama Krishna. He is the supreme controller. He controls the material qualities. Daiviyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya. Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate. Material nature works under his order. How then can he be under the qualities of Prakriti? Krishna is never influenced by the material qualities. Therefore, there's no question of partiality in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is here still in the verse, of course, is emphasizing this point because it's very important. And it was, again, as I said yesterday, it's especially important for people 5,000 years ago when Krishna had just appeared and done all these things. And so all kinds of people were trying to interpret it. What did he do? Why did he do it? Because it was something that happened during the life of their grandparents. So, uh, so it was literally. I mean, not only was it so powerful because Krishna, God, appeared in this world, but there was a great world war, and people are still talking. There's still movies about World War II, which began now, ended 80 years ago, right? And they're still making movies about it. And so this was a world war. It was a war that completely transformed the world because, we don't talk so much about the aftermath of that war, but when you have millions of people killed, millions of warriors, what that means is there were all kinds of political changes because there were probably dozens of countries, dynasties where the kings lost power because they were dead, their sons were dead, and their armies were dead, and new people took power. So, I mean, the whole world was in flux. It's just like if you look at World War One or two, I think World War One, it ended the Ottoman Empire, it ended the Habsburg Empire. So two empires that existed for many, many centuries ended because of World War One. You want to sit here? And so imagine World War II. I mean, World War II completely transformed. It transformed the political situation of the world. So in the same way, the Battle of Kurukshetra changed the world. The world was never the same again. And Krishna appeared and exhibited these mystic powers. So people were really trying to understand what happened. So you have to, I mean, it's very interesting. That would be an interesting story itself to be born in the generation right after Kurukshetra, when, for centuries, but the world's trying to figure out what just happened and who was Krishna. So that's why these verses in the Bhagavatam, they may just seem completely theological to us. But actually for people back then, they're just trying to understand Krishna. And you get this very clearly in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, where the sages are saying, like, what happened? And who was Krishna? And what did he do? And explain to us. So again, it's not just for us living this time, it's just, the Bhagavatam and the sages of Naimisharanya. But back then, it was people desperately trying to understand what just happened and who is Krishna and explain it so the people. And it's very interesting because the way the sages of Naimisharanya are talking, even the first chapter, it's very important to them. It's most important to them that future generations not misunderstand. They realize that in the future, people won't believe this. It's like, like even like in a movie or something happens, and then they will say, no one's going to believe this. Like, we were in the jungles of Borneo, we came across dinosaurs, like no one's going to believe this. And so there's kind of that mood that who's going to even believe this? And so that's why the sages keep saying, tell us again, who was Krishna? Tell us about what he did. so that people in the future, us, can understand what actually happened and who Krishna really was. So if you look at it in that historical context, it's very exciting. And that's why, again and again, they're going over this point. This is seventh canto. Yeah, we had that canto discussion. This is the seventh canto, and they're still just talking about one of the very basic points of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu, I'm equal to all living beings. So here we're already in the seventh canto, and they're still talking about it because it's such an important. But again, this point is only significant to you if you believe that Krishna is real. Because if you believe that the battle of Kurukshetra or other things that Krishna did even before the battle of Kurukshetra, he killed so many demons, if you think this is all mythology, then it's not even an issue. This is only an issue like Krishna killed. He's supposed to be God. He's supposed to be neutral. He is equal to everyone. Yet he killed all these people and saved all those people. And it's interesting because among the people that were killed at Kurukshetra by Krishna's arrangement were even some devotees like Bhishma. So to sort all this out, all this killing, that's what they're doing here. They're taking this, what would otherwise be an extremely confusing. We just take it for granted. You know, Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed the demons. I mean, for us, it's just like, you know, it's ABC. But if you were alive back then and you just saw all kinds of people dying, and Krishna, who some people say is God, and he's there kind of leading the charge, and well, how could he be God? Because he's just out there either, you know, for the first part of his life, personally killing people. And then by the time you get to Kurukshetra, he's delegated that to the Pandavas and other devotees. Just like Lord Chaitanya traveled for 6 years in South India preaching, then he delegated the preaching to his devotees. He retired in Jagannath Puri, which is parallel to what Krishna did. Krishna, you know, for so many years personally is killing demons, defending the righteous, and then he hands it off to his devotees, Pandavas, the Yadus, and so on. By the way, it's interesting because the Pandavas, Arjuna and his brothers, are famous for being the rightful heirs to the Kuru throne, but actually the only human blood they have is from the Yadus, because they are in the sort of the normal English sense of the word demigod, they are demigods. Demigod in the dictionary usually means like one human parent and one divine parent. So we use the words in this kind of somewhat different way, but we use it so much that really that becomes a meaning. Also, it's just like to beg the question used to mean something else, and now it means, well, that brings up the question, which is not really what the expression meant. Originally, to beg a question means that you're sort of avoiding the question. But anyway, so meanings change. But in any case, that's why they're going on and on and on about, well, is Krishna impartial and killed the demons and he saved the devotees, but he says he's equal to everyone. The reason they keep talking about this is because it was obviously a very big issue 5,000 years ago. And it's a big issue if you understand that Krishna is real. He really did this. So that's the historical background. So Sattvam Rajastama Iti. This appears elsewhere in the Bhagavatam. Iti means in Sanskrit, well, in English, we put things in quotation marks. In Sanskrit, they just put the end quotation marks because they assume you're smart enough to figure out where the quote begins. So a lot of the time, say most of the time, when you have et, it means like that's like unquote. And so then the question would be, why is et placed here? Because my view would be that if you say, because sattvam, rajas, tama, the three gunas, it's sort of like saying in the conventional sense. Because all of these words, and it's actually so you don't have to put the word guna after all of them, because the word iti here indicates that we're talking about the well-known set, the well-known group, and we're talking about the gunas. So even the iti is interesting how it functions in Sanskrit. So sattva rajas tama iti prakriter natvano guna. These are qualities, gunahas, plural. These are the qualities of prakriti, not of the soul. That's what it means. So, if everyone thinks you're good looking, well, maybe you are, but that you're not that body. So it's not of the soul. These are not the soul doesn't have these qualities. There aren't sattva souls in the sense of sattva guna, the material sense of it. They're not raja bodies or people, and there are people in those modes, but they're not those modes because they really just refer to nature. And of course, Prabhupada takes this to mean, well, in the word for word, he says of the spirit soul. In the translation, he takes it to mean the supreme soul. And this is just one question, how this is one example of how the same word is used for Krishna and the soul. This is the beta beta. So on the one hand, he's God and we are obviously not God. On the other hand, Krishna and the Bhagavatam use a number of words to indicate both of us, like Atma. Krishna is Atma and we are Atma. Of course, he's Paramatma. And then another word is Purusha, person. So Purusha often refers to us and it often refers to Krishna. So even grammatically, there's beta beta. Whereas interesting, if you look at Islam, they're like really like the biggest offense in Islam is called shirk, shirk, which means to think that the same quality can be found in God and souls. So it's like this overwhelming dualism. If you want to see like the just absolute dualism, that's it. And so it's just as irrational as absolute monism. The actual fact is beta beta. Or as Ramanuja said, which means exactly the same thing, Vishishta Advaita, because Advaita or Abeda mean the same thing. Advaita means non-dual, and Aveda means no difference, no separation. And Vishishta means with distinctions. Vishesha or Visheshana in Sanskrit is a word for adjective. So an adjective is something that distinguishes nouns. Like, for example, the house, the big house, the small house, the old house, the new house, the white house, or the blue house, and so on. That's what adjectives make visheshanas, they make distinctions. So therefore, vishishtadvaita means non-duality, but with distinctions. So it's actually Ramanuja's philosophy, which is which is a form of Veda Veda, as opposed to Madhva. I was just reading today in the Journal of Vaishnava Studies, interesting article, something I already knew, but it had different details, that in many ways, Lord Chaitanya's teachings are different than Madhvacharya's teachings. So, I mean, anyone who really looks at it from a scholarly point of view would say we're not really in the Madhva Sampradaya because we disagree on so many points. It was, in fact, Lord Chaitanya never said that. And his immediate followers never said that. The Goswamis never said that. The person who first said it was Baladev Vidyabhushan in the 1700s in the court in Jaipur in Rajasthan. The reason he said it is because, first of all, he came from that community. Just he was one of the few people that, quote unquote, joined the movement that was actually from the Madhva Sampradaya. And in those days, in the Vaishnavas took shelter in Rajasthan after a Aurangzeb, that sort of the demonic Mughal ruler, about whom too much evil cannot be attributed. And so he's the one that, attacked the temples in Vrindavan. And so the Vaishnavas took their deities and fled to Jaipur, because as the name of the city indicates, like victory city, Jaipur. And so because the Rajputs, interesting, the Rajputs, which is just kind of modern Indian language for Rajaputra, prince, son of a king. And just one little interesting historical detail, that the Scythians invaded India and gained some power, but they became Vaishnavas. The Muslims were the first invaders that didn't surrender to the superior culture India had. And so the Scythians who invaded and then became Vaishnavas, they're the ones who actually ended up defending Vaishnavism against the Mughals in Rajasthan. And if you, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says that a certain event took place in the Shakabda, the Shaka year. So the Shaka, those are the Scythians who brought their calendar with them. Anyway, so back to the matinee. So it said here, Nate Shang. So these gunas, of these gunas, yugapat, simultaneously, O king, there is certainly not hrasa, shrinking, or Prabhupada translates it here, diminution, or ulasa, or increase, growing. Ulasa is sort of, so why would the Bhagavatam mention this? Is this some very technical point that is, I don't know, meant to cure devotees with insomnia during the Bhagavatam class?
Can't be that.
No, it can't be that. So, because one obvious importance of this is that if we are indulging in lower modes, we cannot increase the higher modes. So in the food we eat, in the people we associate with, in our personal habits, if we are feeding the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, goodness cannot increase. And therefore, peace of mind cannot increase. Wisdom cannot increase, because they just, you can't go in opposite directions at the same time. So that, I think, is the real point here, that, and there is no happiness without goodness. In fact, think of the word excited. Like, it just, if someone says I'm excited, I just think it's like some agitated electron or something. Something got excited. It's interesting because the word excited is very much like the Sanskrit word harsha. And like, for example, Roma means hair. So when your hairs stand on end because you're so excited, it's Roma harsha. But the idea of harsha, and Krishna, in the Gita guide, I show there's like all these different cases where Krishna uses like pairs of words together for dualities. Like, one of them is harsha shoka. Shoka, of course, is lamentation. And then the opposite is harsha. You get all excited and then you get depressed, or you lament. So in the mode of passion, there's no actual happiness. There's just, it's like mental, and there's like, you think you're supposed to be happy. For example, you won the game or something, or you got something else, or this person finally said they like me, or whatever. And if you think about it, it's not actual happiness. It's just excitement. You're just agitated. And we mistake that agitation for happiness. Real happiness is just, it's peaceful, it's steady, you're just happy, and you remain happy. It's not that today you're through the roof, and tomorrow you're through the cellar, you're crashing. So that a thing going up and down is not happiness. So if we're indulging in that false happiness when you're really just exciting yourself, or it's just mental, it's like, okay, I made all this money, or I won this prize, or these people respect me, or this person is somehow, returning my previously unrequited love or something. All these things, just excitement. It's just mental. Your mind is just telling you that you're happy as opposed to actually being happy. So the only real happiness is the mode of goodness. And that's why Krishna takes his valuable time to tell us, for example, about food in the different modes. So if someone's a chili head, you're going to be passionate. I mean, I was served a fruit bowl with chili on it once at a program. So there is nothing which is safe from chili in certain communities. So, I mean, why does Krishna, I think it's like, I forget, 21 or 22 different contexts where Krishna talks about the three modes of nature. Why is he doing that? It's like, how is that relevant? You could say, well, it's like, what if you're reading a spiritual book and suddenly there's instructions on, I don't know, how to clean your air conditioning filter or something? It's like something like, why is that in the book? This is supposed to be on like spiritual wisdom. Because Krishna says sattvam atra sattvam nirmalatvat, because sattva is free of gross contamination. Prakashakam, it's enlightening. Goodness is enlightening. Not fully, but anamiyam. And if you're really in the mode of goodness, you don't suffer so much. Sort of right above it. Whereas in the mode of passion, you really, they have an expression in Brazil. No Brazilians here? That's strange. But they say senti na carne, like felt it in the flesh. It's like they have this passionate. In Spanish, they say that.
Yeah. Sure.
Anyway, so
The skin.
yes, la piel. So it's interesting because we talk about sadhana. What's your sadhana? But if you have a nice little sadhana, but you're eating the wrong food, I don't mean just eating like, sinful things, but if you're eating passionate food, if you're hanging out with passionate people, if you're just doing passionate things, then, and that's the relevant thing. You can't increase and decrease the same quality at the same time. So whatever we're doing that's passionate is sort of neutralizing the good things that we're doing. So that, one real secret of advancing, actually being happy in Krishna consciousness, not only being ecstatic, but also being happy sometimes, is, yeah, I'm really ecstatic, but I'm not actually happy. So, so it's really important to, to check your inner gunometer. People check everything else, like how many steps did I take today, and how many calories and how many carbs did I eat. They're like everything's on their what do they call those watches?
Smartwatch.
Well, what they call the Apple
iWatch. The Apple.
Yeah, Apple Watch. Yeah, iWatch phonetically just didn't make it. So, but it's interesting that it's like, let's say you have this hot air balloon that can really go up into the sky, and you want to go up and see the world, but you forgot to untie the ropes. And it's interesting because guna also means rope. So it's like you have a vehicle which is capable of soaring, capable of flying, but you forgot to untie the rope. And so if we're trying to chant, we're chanting Hare Krishna, but at the same time we're indulging in passionate and ignorant activities, you're not actually going to get any altitude. I mean, you'll kind of maintain, Krishna will keep you around, but you're not going to have that wonderful, blissful life that we want. So that's why there's all this discussion of the gunas, not, for many devotees, not the most thrilling topic in our books, but actually it should be very interesting to us. Because when Krishna talks about like showing Arjuna's universal form, I mean, when's the last time you saw the universal form? But when we talk about the gunas, this is real life. This is the movies you're watching. This is the food you're eating. It's the friends you've chosen. It's the music you listen to. It's the places where you go for your walks or recreation. This is the real life, the gunas. So Nateshang Yuga, and they can't at the same time go up and down. And so if we want to be happy in the mode of goodness, we can't be counteracting that by our other activities. Like attachment, bodily attachment, and so on. So these are very practical verses, and certainly in Krishna, if that's true for us. And then, in a sense, to really appreciate why the Bhagavatam keeps saying that Krishna is nirguna, he's free of these qualities. If you're not particularly interested in guna kata, if you find you like in a Bhagavatam class and talking about the gunas, that's a really good opportunity to catch up on your rest. Then but if we really want to be free, because why do we lament? Why do some things happen? And then we lament, or we become angry, or we're disturbed by it because our gunometer's turned off. But if you turn it back on, and if we really carefully monitor our lives and try to stay in the mode of goodness, then when the inevitable waves come, you won't be, thrown up and down by the waves of material life. So it's very practical. And if that's true for us, imagine Krishna. Imagine Krishna. Like if you see the different ways that you say transcendental in Sanskrit, one way they have the word gunatita, which Krishna uses in the Gita a few times. Ati means beyond or over, and ita is gone, so literally gone beyond, atita. So Krishna uses the term gunatita, gone beyond the gunas, which is really one of the ways that you say transcendental in Sanskrit. Or just nirguna. So anyway, any questions on these points?
Could we go to the English translation?
Oh yeah, of course.
No, man.
Oh yeah.
So basically, you're explaining the last sentence in the end of your lecture.
These three gunas cannot act by increasing or decreasing simultaneously. Yeah. And the other sentences in the verse also they're all kind of preparing that last sentence.
Do you think that sentence could have been said in a way in which it would be more understood? Because I have to admit that in the very beginning of the class, I kept on concentrating on that sentence and didn't quite understand it. But then you explained it and it was able to understand it.
Yeah, that's what Prabhupada told us to give Bhagavatam class. Actually, Prabhupada famously said one time, if you have Bhagavatam class every day, there'll always be new lights. That's the word Prabhupada. So by Krishna's mercy, Krishna's in our heart, and because we're following his pure devotee, Krishna is giving us more and more understanding.
When I read the sentence, though, I'm still confused.
These three gunas cannot act by increasing or decreasing. Yeah, I think it's just what I said. I mean, that particular, the editing there, that English may not be the most lucid, but if you look at the Sanskrit, it just says, of the modes, of these three modes, there cannot be increase and decrease, like at the same time. Yugapad, simultaneously.
So does that mean that the modes are not acting? Like, can't the mode of like passion be increasing?
Well, only if you are choosing it.
Right, but then the other mode of ignorance is decreasing,
Well,
or is it?
no, it's, yeah, if you are acting in passion, then you are not acting in ignorance, except that when you act in passion, you are choosing ignorance as your next door neighbor. So it's going to be just a hop, skip, and a jump into the mode of ignorance. Whereas if you're in the mode of goodness, passion is kind of like a buffer. You may just have a bad day, bad shika day. You may have where you just become like a little disturbed. So you may just get a little passionate. But if you're in the mode of passion, you're right next to ignorance.
I think the confusion is in the word simultaneously, that you cannot increase goodness and ignorance at the same time, or decrease both at the same time.
Well, actually, that's nateshang hrasula sevava. Yeah, because if you are increasing one of them, you're decreasing the others. Just so it's the same thing. If you're increasing goodness, you're decreasing passion, and vice versa. So, in fact, Krishna says that explicitly in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that sometimes, one guna becomes prominent over the others, and the other one becomes prominent. So it just, to increase one of the gunas means to decrease the others. Or actually, let's say you're goodness, and then you increase passion, then passion becomes prominent. You're actually getting closer to ignorance, so it's more dangerous. So I think it's very simple. It just means that of these three, there cannot simultaneously be increase and decrease. So the Sanskrit is very simple. I think it's self-evident. Anything else? Yes.
I have also heard, so you mentioned that oftentimes the translation of transcendental or an understanding of transcendental is like Krishna's above these three modes. Sometimes it's even said we need to get to the like transcendental mode of goodness to surpass even the mode of goodness. And I have also heard and experienced in my own life that the material mode of goodness, even though we read it over and over again, how that's the best kind of launch pad, it comes with this great negative side to the sword of like pride and like ego. And so
Or even just trying to enjoy it.
Or even just trying to enjoy it. Right. So I'm wondering, like, as we cultivate the mode of goodness in our lives, how do we kind of like navigate the negative sides that can also?
Well, that's easy. It's you just have to make it Krishna centered. The sattva, Krishna says in the Gita, and it's very interesting. He says, Yajante Satvika Devan. People in the mode of goodness worship the devas. So that's, in a sense, that there's one big problem in the material mode of goodness. It's not Krishna conscious. And it's not Krishna conscious because if you worship the devas, it's kind of like the supreme celestial capitalism, in the sense that you're worshiping the devas because you get something in return. It's not that I so admire Indra that I'm just gonna. It's not bhakti. There's no Indra bhakti. It's not like there's Surya bhakti. It's not selfless devotion. So in the mode of goodness, you are receiving gifts, offering them back, and you are enjoying your own virtue. Like I am really grooving on my own virtue. And you see that like these sort of like New Age people, where they dress a certain way and they have this certain manner. And there's a certain pride in being above it all and looking down on the poor fools that are, just in lower modes. It's palpable. And so the mode of goodness cannot free you of ego, false ego, because there's no one greater than yourself in your universe. It's not a situation where there's someone who's really the best and it's not me. It's Krishna. It's real devotion. So it's in the act of devotion that we escape the foolishness of self-centeredness. But in the material mode of goodness, who are you devoted to? In fact, the word Krishna uses, yajante. People in the mode of goodness, they make offerings to the gods. And that's just, that sort of pious commerce. So in the material mode of goodness, you're nice and vegetarian, maybe vegan and nonviolent and all that, but you're really ultimately not devoted to anyone but yourself. Although it's interesting, it's kind of like a Jainism in the sense of they believe in eternal soul, but not God. So when Krishna describes in verse 18.20, Gita, when Krishna describes jnana, worldview, which is what it means there, worldview in the mode of goodness, you actually see that the equality between yourself and others. But it's sort of a supreme equality. It's like we're all equal, we're all souls, but there's no one above us. And since I know that we're all souls and you don't, I'm even above you. Pritha Twaina to here, I'll read that verse for you. Sorry, if anyone saw that, I'm still infallible. So that was a joke. So chapter 18. Yes, Krishna says, Sarva Bhuteshu, in all creatures. Yena, which means the knowledge by which, or the worldview by which. Ekam Bhavam, Abhyam, Ikshate. One sees a single unperishing nature. So that's interesting because in America and other countries like this, they want equality. Like, let's see, everyone equally as a citizen, and yet it's so passionate. And people can accept ideologically that we're all equal, but if you're squarely in the mode of passion with a good dose of ignorance thrown in your diet, then even though you're going to say, okay, we have equal rights, but I'm really better than you, and I want to make more money than you, and I want to, live in a better neighborhood than you, and I want to drive a better car. So it's just this, you're trying to maintain this ideal of equality in a society where everyone wants to be better than everyone else. And that's why you get so much corruption, hypocrisy. So Krishna says that knowledge by which one sees in all creatures a single unperishing nature, and avibhaktam vibhakteshu, undivided within the divided. So in other words, there are obviously divisions. There are rich people and poor people. There are beautiful people and, let us say, less beautiful people. There are educated people and uneducated people. There are sick people and healthy people, young and old. They're just, how many dualities do you want? And therefore, Krishna says, vibhakteshu, among the divisions, because on the surface of reality, they're lots of differences, lots of dualities on the surface. And yet one sees in all creatures avibhakta, an undivided nature within all the divided creatures, species, different species. So in other words, in the mode of goodness, you can see beyond the surface. In the mode of passion, you lose the ability to see beyond the surface. You only see the surface. And on the surface, men and women are different. Dogs and camels are different. Rich people and poor people are different. They live in different areas. They have different kinds of lives. Strong and weak people are different. There's all kinds of differences. So the differences are there, but they're on the surface. And the mode of passion, because it blinds you, you can't see below the surface. You can't see beneath the surface. You have no X-ray vision. It's like you go to the doctor and say the doctor says, well, my X-ray machine is broken. You're out of luck. Because a lot of the time, the medical problem is not on the surface. If the doctor could only see the surface of your body, there wouldn't be a lot of, good diagnosing going on. So that's what passion does. It means your X-ray machine is broken. And you can't see beneath the surface. And the oneness is not on the surface. And that's why all these, like great, what do you call them, like self-righteous social justice people, they want to make the surface the same. And of course, they can't do it. So in Krishna consciousness, we know there is a oneness, there is an equality, but it's beneath the surface, and you cannot see beneath the surface if you're in the mode of passion, not speak of ignorance. So that's what it really is. So then you see among the divided creatures, you see one undivided eternal nature. That knowledge, Krishna says, know that vidhi, it's like tad vidhi, it's the command, know that knowledge is the mode of goodness. But even if you see that equality, that ekam bhavam, there's still no God there. And then, of course, in the mode of passion, prithak twainitude, the knowledge which you see through differentness, that nana bhavan, because before, in the previous verse, we had that ekam bhavam, one reality. And then in the mode of passion, you have many realities or many different kinds of things. Pratagvidan, many kinds. And then if that's the way you see all creatures, that knowledge is the mode of passion. That's the great contradiction of the United States or other democratic countries, not just this country, is they say we're all equal and we have equal rights, but because they're in the mode of passion, they're not seeing. They're talking about it ideologically, but they're not seeing it. And when something's just ideology and you can't see it, why bother, I have to think about me and my family. So if I rip off these people, if I'm a politician and I cheat or I, take a bribe, it's because I'm important. My family's important. They're not seeing the equality. They're just talking about it. So it's very important, this whole discussion of the modes.
No, you go. No, go. No.
Go ahead, Sarah.
First.
You're up to bat.
First.
Knock the dust off your cleats and get up there at home plate.
Okay, it also, we understand that different individuals seem to come with our own karmic packages with our subtle bodies into these new gross bodies.
Definitely.
And those packages, those backpacks of karma seem to create certain tendencies with us from birth. People who are more in the mode of passion, ignorance, goodness, and maybe life situations can mold and affect that as well. But we see many devotees who come to this path have different predominant natures, passion, ignorance, goodness. Yet we're also told, we also read that each of us, no matter what our individual natures are, we should still endeavor to cultivate the mode of goodness. And so my question is, what exactly does that mean? To what degree do different natures have the ability to actually change or cultivate the mode of goodness if they have like a primary kind of birth nature?
Yes, that's good. It's a really good question. No intention of answering it. Just kidding. So it's a joke. That was a very good question. We are not merely guna packages,
Mm.
and the soul can act. So when Krishna says, listen to me, do what I'm saying, he's appealing to the soul. He's not appealing to your gunas.
Mm.
And so the soul actually has the ability to look at himself or herself and say, oh my God, how did I get into this mess?
Mhm.
And then, now the body has momentum. I always give the example, let's say you're driving on the interstate, you realize, whoops, going in the wrong direction. Actually, that really happened. We had, in 1983, I think it was, we were working on, Robert's philosophy book, so we were inviting professors from different universities around the country to come to Florida, and then I have dialogues with them. And so one professor came. He was a very respected professor, expert on Plato from University of South Florida in Tampa. And so he made the mistake of allowing one nice devotee, Prabhupada disciple, who was very spaced out, to drive him back. So I can drive him. And he went the wrong way in 75. And they were having such an animated discussion. It wasn't until they hit the Georgia border that he realized, oh, I don't think we're on the road to Tampa. But anyway, so just remind me, you can't make this stuff up, Hare Krishna movement. Anyway, so to answer your question, when Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, he's speaking to you, the soul. He's not speaking to your gunas. And so let's say a devotee, so the example I gave is that's why I knew it. There was some reason I gave that example. Because let's say you're tootling, going along in your little guna mobile, and let's say you're going at a certain speed, you realize, whoops, going the wrong way. This is the mode of passion and ignorance. But you can't just slam on the brakes, stop the car in a second. There's a process of slowing down because the gunas have their momentum. So if I had certain bad habits, or all that stuff, everything's not Krishna conscious, I tend to be depressed, or I tend to get too excited, or I tend to sometimes really have a bad day and maybe even like eat onion or something. So the point is that you have to slow down. There's a process of braking. In fact, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that says that, it's like a chariot driver. If the horses are sort of going off the path a little bit, you can't just pull back on the reins, then you lose control and the whole thing goes crazy. So there's a process of gradually slowing the horses down without losing control. And so it's like that. We gradually gain control over our senses, over our body and mind. And it's that doesn't justify sinful activities, but it's just we have to have a realistic, practical strategy to deal with the momentum of our material body and mind.
Brahmatirtha también tengo una pregunta.
Brahmatirtha,
Está escrita,
I see it. What is the relationship between gunas and freedom? That's interesting. Well, it's obvious. The higher you are in the gunas, the more freedom you have. Because the mode of ignorance, you have no freedom. You get it. Bhagavatam literally says in the mode of Gita, the mode of ignorance, you get everything wrong. You misinterpret everything. And because let's say someone's an addict of something, then obviously there's no freedom. And then as you rise in the modes, you get more and more freedom. You regain your freedom. Or someone has a very strong, and so it's possible because it's the soul that's choosing. The soul is choosing freedom. It's like we can be attached to, someone can be a sex addict. Someone can be just so strongly attached, someone that doesn't really love you, but you're really attached that it's almost like someone, tying you up to the back of their pickup truck and just dragging you on a dirt road or something. It's a nice image. So therefore, so whatever little bit of freedom, someone could be, let's say, so fallen or so attached to this or that, they just have a little bit of freedom left. So whatever, it's like there's a little bit of light. If you're, let's say, in a dark house or something, and all the lights went out, and there's just one little candle burning, that little candle can save you. So if the soul has just a little bit of light left and freedom, and then you use that freedom properly, you can save yourself. So free will, freedom is because free will means some degree of self-control, or just even if one doesn't have self-control, just some degree of awareness. Because in the Bhagavad Gita and every other wisdom literature ever written, freedom is analogous to seeing. Like, you shall know the truth and it shall set you free. So what sets us free, if we're talking about freedom, is true understanding. And so no matter how fallen one is, you can have some little understanding like that, yeah, Krishna is God. Even if one only has the understanding that Krishna can save me. No matter how fallen I am, no matter how bad things have become, Krishna can save me, and Krishna will save me if I surrender to him. And just that awareness alone, everything good will happen. You just understand that Krishna can and will save me. And therefore you just hold on to Krishna. And that can pull you out of the darkest situation. Chandrasekhar Acharya Prabhu.
I have a little doubt regarding, for example, the passage which you mentioned a few days ago, where the seers were looking at signs on Parikshit's when Parikshit was newly born about his future, and I think we could make an analogy with astrologers who are able to, tell the future of some new child by external perceivable objects. Now, coming to the issue of free will and the soul, which you just brought up, and correct me if I'm wrong, that happens on a metaphysical level, which is beyond sense perception. The choice of the soul to want to love God is beyond sense perception, and therefore my doubt is how do these so-called seers or astrologers
Well, in fairness to astrology, maybe the first time in my life I've been fair to astrology, but apparently, if my astrologer friends are to be trusted, and they seem to know this stuff, your, so to speak, your horoscope can include things like spiritually inclined or determination, or things of weak determination, not able to really. So they talk about those things.
and how is that possible? Because the soul is beyond sense perception.
Well, it's just a Krishna. I mean, imagine, even let's say you go to a psychologist and the psychologist just talks to you and then writes up a report. This is what I'm seeing. So, I mean, if you think about it, it's really ingenious to have like a daily newspaper in the stars.
About the physical, even the subtle, but
No, it's about like spiritually inclined, or I'm not saying that everyone run out, and I'm not saying it's, who needs the Bhagavad Gita? We have astrology. My point is that from what I've heard from astrologers and the way they explain their reading of celestial configurations, it includes things like spiritually inclined, weak determination, strong determination, able to transcend attachments. That's kind of part of the language.
But the choice of the soul, if I make it one.
But your free will, but yeah, I mean, astrologer can't tell you exactly what will happen. It's not because it's not predetermined.
So the prediction of he will be a great devotee. How the heck do they know? Because he has free choice every second of his life.
However, to have free choice doesn't mean that at every second everything's up for grabs. Like at every second, like it's suddenly someone in this room could run out after a nice breakfast and become a serial killer or something. It's to say that things are possible do not mean they're probable or likely. In fact, they can be extremely improbable. And so the fact that, let's say, in this life I have not chosen to do some crazy thing doesn't mean that, well, then you didn't really have free will. The proof of free will is not making bad choices. In fact, unless you were choosing virtue, there would be no credit in being virtuous. Being a devotee or being virtuous, which often coincide, but not always. But let's say if you're a devotee and you're virtuous, it's to your credit precisely because you do have free will. Otherwise, we could never give credit to anyone for doing the right thing, and we could never blame anyone for doing the wrong thing. And yet we do praise and we do criticize if someone, let's say, for example, someone is married and they mistreat their spouse in some way. We are justified in blaming that person. And actually, this may be one of the few points in which I agree with Jean-Paul Sartre, but we do reject psychological determinism, which manifests, for example, let's say someone doesn't treat you properly. And then they say, well, you don't understand what I've been through. In other words, because of what I've been through, I get a free pass. I can act in unethical ways. I can mistreat other people because of my situation. So they give themselves permission to do the wrong thing. And they even justify it. Not like, I don't want to be doing this, but I can't control myself. It's like, no, I have a right to do this based on what happened to me or based on my situation or based on what my needs are. So this is whereas in a superior person, a person who's just a better person, I may want this, or maybe I went through that, or I had this bad experience, but I still have to do the right thing. And that's what's kind of attractive to me in certain literature, which comes before the age where everything is psychology. And because there were ethical principles that don't depend on how you feel today. So we have a duty to treat other people, let's say, with respect. And it doesn't depend on what mood you're in. So the psychologizing of human life, and of course, it's just like, why is it that when you have to sign a rental contract or any contractor, before, like when you buy something, it says, please read all this totally unintelligible legalese language, and then click OK, and no one actually reads it. Maybe it was like 3 people out of 1,000 that actually read it. But why is it written that way? Because that's how lawyers make money. Lawyers have arranged that because so many of the legislators are lawyers, that just to function in normal life, you need a lawyer. Everyone needs a lawyer. Everyone needs a psychologist. Why? Because I'm not saying that psychology is never useful or that psychologists never help people. That's not my point. My point is that virtually all human behavior has been translated into psychological language so that no matter what personality type you are, you need a psychologist. So let's say, for example, your brain works quickly and you can get a lot of things done. Well, you're hyper. No, you're not hyper, you're just efficient. Or let's say, for example, you really want your room to be clean and tidy. Yeah, that's anal. No, it's not. It means you're not a barbarian. It means you want to live in a clean, well-organized space so you can think clearly. So it's just pathologizing all types of human personalities so that everyone needs a psychologist, just like everyone needs a lawyer. So it's these vocational mafias, the lawyer mafia, the psychologist mafia. Again, I don't mean that there aren't good people that do those things. There are good people in those professions, and they do sometimes really help people. We're talking about excess. It's like if you, let's say you eat, let's say you want to break the world record and get in the book of, Guinness Book, and you eat 973,000 pickles in one day, and of course died. So it doesn't mean you can't have a few pickle slices in your vegan burger, your veggie burger or something. So I'm talking about excess and just planet psychology, as opposed to just being a good person, understanding what good qualities are, and sincerely cultivating good qualities. It's interesting because, basically people go to psychologists because, I'm not happy or there's some problem. Again, I'm not saying that there's no use for it. There is a use for it. We're talking about excess. The easiest way to be happy, to feel good, be a good person. Krishna actually says in the Bhagavad Gita that happiness comes from goodness. Happy. So if you just cultivate virtue, you will be happy. You don't believe me? Read Jane Austen. So, any other points? Oh, there's something here. To what extent can Krishna Bhakti change our astrology, karma, destiny? All I know is if you surrender to Krishna, you'll have a great life. And so whether that means we changed our karma, our destiny, our astrology, I don't worry about it. I mean, just being very honest now, I actually never think about it. I don't think I've ever in my life made a decision by consulting an astrological chart. I believe, and I was in Prabhupada, I've said this many times, I was actually with Prabhupada, sitting right next to him, when the first ISKCON astrologers came into his room in Los Angeles and sought his blessings. They wanted Prabhupada's blessings to do astrology in ISKCON. And Prabhupada said no. You can see, how effective that answer was. And again, I'm not saying astrologers are bad. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that I can just tell you the way I've lived my life. I've just tried to please Krishna. And I've tried to see everything as Krishna's mercy. And so I don't think you need astrology in order to have a good life. If you actually are devoted to Krishna and trust Krishna. That's what Prabhupada said. But so again, I'm not, I'm not thinking that I'm not going to go on a rampage or a campaign or something, stop astrology. Apparently it helps certain people, so everyone does what they like. But yeah, there is the surrender to Krishna option. It is an option. Just want to keep it as an option that you can fully take shelter of Krishna and have a wonderful life. And Krishna says he'll protect you. Krishna says he will take care of you. He says he will feed you. He says he will give you whatever you're lacking and preserve what you have. That sounds like a great life to me. But if someone needs these other things, I mean, everyone just has to do what they need to do. But like I go to doctors, I go to, dentists and even dermatologists and, I do things. So it's not like I don't need to go to a dermatologist because I'm surrendered to Krishna. So if someone needs something, they should just do what they need. So I'm not saying that no one should ever go to a psychologist. I'm not saying no one should ever do these things. I'm simply saying it can't become an absolute that you cannot have a good life unless you have an astrologer or a psychologist. So I'm actually coming from the other direction. I'm not saying you shouldn't take advantage of these services if you need them. It's just we shouldn't promote the idea that you cannot have a good life. No one can have a good life unless they do these things. Hope that's clear.
Let me ask the question you want to ask.
Well, want to negotiate first? Okay, go ahead.
Just trying to understand how like the intersection of devotees' behavior in terms of social understanding.
Hare Krishna in social context, that's a real topic.
So for instance, you take
Yes.
for instance Haridas Thakur.
Yes.
He was born into a family of Mohammedans, and therefore he was not allowed to enter the Jagannath Puri temple.
Right.
Now, we teach, and Prabhupada is taught, and Shastras are teaching, that a devotee is above that.
Yes.
So he didn't protest. He didn't try to change human society. He just executed.
Well, first of all, he didn't try to protest because he probably would have been, killed or something. I mean, it's not that it wasn't, it wasn't California where you have, you can just have a populist movement. In fact, I mean, I can't go in the Jagannath temple either. I don't protest. Why? Because it's just because I can see Jagannath whenever I want. And I personally don't believe there's some special spiritual benefit in seeing the same Jagannath in that temple. Whenever I go to an ISKCON Rath Yatra, I mean, Jagannath and his brother and sister could not be more visible. It couldn't be more visible. So it's not like it's not that I need that. I need Jagannath, but I don't need this Jagannath in that temple. And so I don't protest, and Charidas didn't protest because, what's he going to do? Call up the Bharat Civil Rights, with the American Civil Liberties Union? You call it the BCLU or something, the Bharat CLU. So there are no options. I mean, there's nothing in the world he could do. At the same time, when the Muslims insisted he be a Muslim, he did protest. He rejected that. So it's not that he just went along with whatever society told him. In fact, he was very revolutionary. He did something which was shockingly nonconformist. What he didn't do is waste his time in situations where it would accomplish nothing. So, do you have a question? Nothing? So, thank you all very much. Hope that was helpful and not didn't ruin anyone's life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.